Hello everyone, welcome to this series on literary criticism and theory. And in this video, we are going to discuss historical and biographical criticism. Introduction. The historical and biographical approaches to literary criticism have long been influential in the analysis of texts. These approaches consider a literary work primarily as a reflection of its author's life and times, or the life and times of the characters within the work. This video will explore the basic tenets and methodology of these approaches as articulated by critics like Hippolyte Taine and provide examples to illustrate their application. The foundation of historical and biographical criticism. The historical biographical approach, as most clearly articulated by 19th century French critic Hippolyte Taine, is based on the concept of race, milieu, and moment. Taine's approach suggests that literature is a product of the author's environment and historical context. This deterministic view posits that understanding the historical and biographical background of a literary work is crucial for its interpretation. Methodology of historical and biographical approaches. Historical approach. Contextual analysis. Begin by examining the historical context in which the literary work was produced. This includes understanding the political, social, economic, and cultural conditions of the time. Historical events. Identify and analyze significant historical events referenced or alluded to in the text. Consider how these events influence the narrative, themes, and characters. Historical figures and institutions. Investigate the portrayal of historical figures and institutions within the text. Analyze how these portrayals reflect the author's perspective and the historical context. Historical success. Utilize primary and secondary historical sources to gather information about the time period. Compare and contrast these sources with the literary text to identify parallels and deviations. Biographical approach. Author's life. Study the biography of the author, focusing on key events, personal experiences, and relationships that may have influenced their writing. Autobiographical elements. Identify and analyze elements in the text that may reflect the author's personal life, beliefs, and experiences. Correspondence and journals. Examine the author's letters, diaries, and journals for insights into their thoughts and motivations during the writing process. Contemporary reception. Research how the work was received by contemporaries and how the author's life and reputation impacted its reception. Examples of historical biographical analysis. William Langland's Piers Plowman. William Langland's Piers Plowman serves as a prime example of a text that benefits from historical biographical analysis. The poem is not only a magnificent allegory but also a scorching critique of the corruption prevalent in the 14th century English society, encompassing social, political, and religious spheres. The historical context of the peasants' revolt makes the poem's phrases particularly poignant and relevant. John Milton's sonnets. John Milton's sonnets, such as On the Late Massacre of Piedmont and On His Blindness, reflect specific events in his life and the broader historical context. On the Late Massacre in Piedmont commemorate the slaughter of the Waldenses, a Protestant sect, in 1655, while On His Blindness reflects Milton's own experience with blindness. These biographical elements enrich the reader's understanding of the poems. Historical novels. Historical novels often gain depth when their milieu or that of their author is understood. For example, James Fenimore Cooper's Last of the Mohicans, Sir Walter Scott's Ivanhoe, Charles Dickens's A Tale of Two Cities, and John Steinbeck's The Grapes of Wrath are deeply intertwined with their historical settings. The French and Indian War, Anglo-Norman Britain, the French Revolution, and the American Depression, respectively. These novels are not just stories about characters, but also reflections of significant historical events. Ideological and propagandist novels. Harriet Beecher Stowe's Uncle Tom's Cabin. Harriet Beecher Stowe's Uncle Tom's Cabin is an example of a novel whose historical context, the antebellum South, is crucial for its interpretation. Understanding the historical backdrop of slavery in America enhances the reader's appreciation of the novel's impact and its role in the abolitionist movement. Frank Norris's The Octopus and Upton Sinclair's The Jungle. Similarly, Frank Norris's The Octopus, which addresses railroad expansion in the late 19th century, and Upton Sinclair's The Jungle, which exposes scandals in the American meatpacking industry in the early 20th century, are more meaningful when their historical contexts are understood. These novels are not only literary works but also social commentaries on their respective eras. Sinclair Lewis's satires. Sinclair Lewis's satires such as Main Street, Arrowsmith, Elmer Gantry, and Babbitt gain added depth for readers familiar with the cultural context of early 20th century America. These works critique various aspects of American society, from small life to the medical profession and religious charlatans. Historical and biographical approaches to poetry. While novels may lend themselves more readily to historical biographical analysis due to their broader range of experience, poetry can also benefit from this approach. William Blake's London. William Blake's London is an outcry against societal oppression, child labor, and church indifference. Understanding the historical context of Blake's England, particularly the social issues of the Industrial Revolution, provides a deeper appreciation of the poem's themes. The Sacco and Vanzetti case and Vietnam War poetry. The impact of Sacco and Vanzetti case on young poets of the 1920s and the opposition to the Vietnam War among American poets in the 1960s resulted in numerous literary works on these subjects. Poems and other literary works from these periods reflect the author's engagement with contemporary social and political issues. Satirical verse. Political and religious verse satires such as those by John Donne and Alexander Pope use contemporary situations and figures to critique their societies. Dryden's Absalom and Achitophel and Pope's The Dunciad are examples of works that benefit from an understanding of the historical and biographical context. The evolution of historical and biographical criticism. Historical and biographical criticism have evolved significantly over time. Initially focused on the deterministic view of literature as a product of its time and author, these approaches have grown to incorporate more nuanced understandings of context and authorial intent. The development of these approaches has been shaped by significant critics and movements, continually refining the methodology and its application in literary studies. The role of primary and secondary sources. Primary sources such as letters, diaries, and contemporaneous reviews provide direct insights into the author's life and times, offering valuable context for historical and biographical analysis. Secondary sources, including historical accounts and biographies, help to contextualize the literary work within broader historical and cultural frameworks. Utilizing these sources effectively is crucial for conducting thorough historical and biographical criticism. Criticisms and controversies. Despite their value, historical and biographical approaches have faced criticisms and controversies. Some critics argue that these methods can lead to the biographical fallacy, where too much emphasis is placed on the author's life at the expense of the text itself. Others contend that the deterministic view inherent in some historical approaches can oversimplify the complex relationship between literature and its context. Addressing these criticisms is essential for a balanced and critical application of these approaches. Interdisciplinary approaches. Historical and biographical criticism often intersect with other disciplines such as history, sociology, psychology, and cultural studies. Interdisciplinary research can enrich literary analysis by incorporating diverse perspectives and methodologies. For example, examining a literary work through the lens of social history can reveal how societal norms and conditions influenced the work. Modern applications and digital humanities. With the advent of digital humanities, historical and biographical criticism has evolved to incorporate new technologies and methodologies. Digital archives, databases, and tools have transformed the way scholars access and analyze historical and biographical information. These advancements have made it easier to conduct comprehensive and nuanced analyses, enhancing our understanding of literary works. Conclusion. Historical and biographical approaches to literary criticism provide valuable insights into the relationship between a literary work and its context. By considering the author's life and times, as well as the historical milieu of the characters, these approaches offer a deeper and more nuanced understanding of literature. From William Langland's Piers Plowman to the social critiques of Sinclair Lewis, historical and biographical analysis remains a vital tool in the study of literature. By embracing interdisciplinary research and modern technologies, these approaches continue to evolve and enrich our appreciation of literary works. So this was the analysis of historical and biographical approach to literature. We will meet in the next video and discuss some works by applying this approach. Until then, goodbye and thank you.